and then I'll share my screen. So just want to double check that I'm actually recording before I start on this. Recording has started. Okay, yeah, good. So today's session is centered around data models to be used when we create visual elements. So say it could be a web page, it could be a page in the desktop client. So as a reference, most of our development has been done so far in WinForms and WPF. But actually, Angular has many of the same traits as these two environments, in that as a minimum, you would have a HTML template to represent the visual shapes on the screen, but also you would have something called code behind. So basically, all the coding is done as far as business logic and data is put into the code behind. In this case, you would see two files for a very easy component or a page. It would be an HTML file, and it would be a TypeScript file, or it could be in the desktop side, it would be an XML file and a C# file. So regardless of being in TypeScript or in C#, everything I talk about today is valid in both environments and can be applied as a technique in both environments. Now, everyone, I think, is familiar with the view model concept. It's basically a way to extract out of the visual construct the data model and business logic. Because the problem with code behind is that you need actually to create the visual page to trigger the solution. So you can't actually do easy testing on it. You need actually to run it in a browser or under a debugger as a live application. Having it separated out in a new file called the view model, you can actually start unit testing that the content of this file. The disadvantage by having a single file to include both the data model and the business logic, and all the business logic and all the data model, is that it's hard to separate out if you wanted to partition out some of the functionality to other use areas. So it's kind of a requirement that if you wanted to use part of the logic, then you need to use the entire data model, and vice versa. So there's a new approach that originates from the Apple Mac world. And as such, if you search the net for VIP, or View Interactive Presenter, which is the full name of it, you will find most likely articles in Apple Mac environments, and that they typically will be using C++ to code. But regardless of language, actually, be it C#, C++, or TypeScript, any object-oriented language could be used to apply these models. Yeah, also the VIP model. So a good summary then is that we should avoid code behind. For simple cases, it could be sufficient for you to establish a view model solution. But in more advanced cases, and where you want to have increased usability for the code elsewhere, you should carefully consider using the VIP model. I mentioned that, but the view model is identified by having one or more view model classes, in addition to the visual class. In the VIP model, you have several more files actually. You have the interactor, you have the presenter, and you have the view contract. But I'll come back to that. So one thing which is actually part of the UI data logic, but which I like to clarify, is what I mean by a data store and a worker. In my mind, a data store is a pure data model. It should not contain any logic to it. On the other side, a worker class is a pure logic model. So it should be in C# a static class. In TypeScript, it should only contain static functions. You will see that if you combine the properties of a worker class and a data store class, then you have a view model class. But I think keeping these two separate from each other makes it even easier to reuse the code and to test the code. I use my own convention for naming. I use worker as a suffix, and I use data store as a suffix. Also, I have a hint to how you could take code behind solution to a VIP model. By the way, you would see that unfortunately the current Angular solution is mostly using code behind, and that's something we need to refactor as soon as possible. It could be that we choose to refactor it as a view model, but also I think in some cases we want to implement a full VIP model on it. There's actually one thing that I haven't mentioned here. It's not as bad as it looks that we are only using code behind, because the code behind is making use of services and states. But that will be a topic for another session. Just know that if you browse the current Angular code, you will more than likely encounter services and states, which is another way of bringing the data models and business logic out of the code behind context. Any questions or comments so far? No? In that case, what I'll do now is to start a live session, taking you through the progress of establishing a simple solution from code behind to view model, and lastly to view interactive presenter solution. And hopefully, walking this path together, you will get a better appreciation of what these models can be used for and their benefits. So let's start. One thing I wanted to show also, because I do enjoy customization of my environment. So you would see that if you like this coloring and appearance of what I have on my screen, just know that I'm using an extension for WebStorm called Dracula. I figured to be using the Sagio UI for everything other than the text editor. For the editor, I use Fira Code. There's another thing which you might have seen and wondered about. If you look to the right here, you would see some strange depiction of equal and less, or less is bigger or equal. This is something called ligatures. So I can disable it, and it's disabled by default, and you can see now what you regularly would see. But I actually find it's even more readable if I enable it as a ligature. You can see the changes here. So, but that is of course something you can play with and try out. So another thing I want to show is the terminal. You can actually configure the terminal and add your own panels. You will see that I usually use git bash as my default shell. I'm kind of in the process of converting to PowerShell because I think PowerShell is a better solution, more modern. But for now, I'm mostly familiar with Bash from the old time working at university or studying at university, and I did a lot of Linux work. So it's still like in my memory. But yes, sometimes we do need to access the command line, and you don't need to open an external terminal for this. You can actually use the terminal dialog in WebStorm or in Raider, and you can use the command line here. So let's start create a component for us. I'm using the Angular command line to generate. This is generate component. This is C. I'm going to require it to be on push. Hopefully you would know what that means. If not, let me know. I'll be creating it under the components folder. It will be called seminar, and it will be registered into the runtime in this module. So let's just execute this. By the way, before I do this, again, if I look to the changes I made so far, let me just bring this into local. There's no changes in the top one. You see this? So it means that anything I do now, I can easily revert, and I can also easily look at the changes I made. So let's just run this from the command line. You will see now that it has added a single file. If I refresh it, but expect more files to be added actually, because you can see here it's created files. If you look to the lower right here, it's actually detecting that I've introduced new files, and I can view the files, and I will then add them into the Git change list. So now, if I should run the application, it wouldn't appear yet because it's not linked into the UI. I will come back to that, but before I do that, one more thing I wanted to show you guys. So if I go to the solution, if I right-click on the package.json file and do this show npm script, then let me collapse this. You will see a window here with the main script entry points. So if I now double-click on watch, then it will actually start watch for me. I already have it running, as you can see. So let me just find it. It's under running here. So you can see running, here's the watch running. So now you don't actually need access to the command line to run npm run watch. You can actually trigger this from the UI here. But as I said, the page is not still registered, so I need to go to a file, and get container. So this is the entry point for selecting pages in our application. So I'll introduce another page. So it will be app seminar, which is the one we created, and it will be displayed when we open the development module. Now I'm pressing Alt F4. It will then reveal the watch. You can see it runs our Alt 4. Once I move out of the current document, it will actually scan for changes. It will detect the file being changed and it will actually build it. So I wanted to show you edit configuration because you might not know how to add a runtime configuration. In which case you can see that I have created a JavaScript debug profile. It's very easy. You just click on plus and select this one, and then you fill out similar settings that I have here. So you might want to screenshot this because it's very convenient to have. Or you can come back and review the video later on. Just know that once you have that configured, you can either debug or you can run. Let's do run now. If I go to development, you will see seminar works. So this is a confirmation that the control element I created is seen now as a page in our application. But it doesn't do too much yet, so let's fix that. So I already have played around with it. So I created some time ago a branch of development called Seminar. So let me review the history that I set up for this. And you can see here, I have done a few changes to the default solution that I created now. So let's examine the content of the XAML file. Let's split and move to the right. Let's collapse this. And then let's open the HTML file. On the left side, you see what we currently have, and what on the right side is my proposal for solution. So let's just copy paste. You would see that it's two input fields, X and Y, it's input. You have an operation input, then you have a output area. You have a button to calculate, and you have a way to display errors, validation errors, and you have a list that you can display as history. So let's just fill in the background. And then let's find the same corresponding file here. So this is empty, currently not doing anything. I will just copy paste. And you can see here, it's the same empty, doesn't contain any business logic, but I filled out some data to be displayed on the page. So now you can see the red is gone because it's actually now compiling in the background. And just wanted to finish. Close this again. If I refresh the page, it should show the mockup for the UI. So basically, as I said, you have X, Y input. You can set up operation. You can press on calculate to calculate, and the history should be populated. Also, there's a validation area. So very simple, but it's a good test case for today's session. Hopefully, you've been following so far. So the first change would be to add business logic to it. I want a fully functional implementation made in code behind David, and then from the code behind we will be moving into a view model solution, and from the view model solution we will move that into a VIP solution. So let me see what I have here. At the code behind, yeah. So let's open the component. Let me do like this. Open revision. So you can see here, if I compare it to the other one, I add some extra fields, current operator and operators, and X and Y. Also added some logic to handle user input. So when user inputs X and Y, it's recorded, and then it's triggering a validation. The validation is also implemented. If you change the operator, it immediately causes a validation to happen. If the validation finds something wrong, it will put that into the error variable. And of course, there's simple calculation, which also contains a history update. So let me just copy paste this in here. And then I will also need to move to the HTML file. I will just copy this over. Before I do that, you can see now this is the dummy one. It doesn't do anything, doesn't capture events. But this one actually have values associated with the text box, and it also propagate events from the user like this. So let's again look at see it is compiling. Finished compilation. Let's refresh the browser. And you can see now there's some default values. If I do calculate now, it's actually updating history. If I should like divide, it immediately says to me that you can't divide by 0. If I do like a number, you can see the validation is updated, calculates. So yeah, it's actually working now, as you can see here. But this is again using the code behind solution. It's not as very apparent in the XML or the HTML file. This is not changed much from different view model implementations. It's basically the same. But you will see that the main changes in the model implementations are what you see on this component TypeScript file. So this is working, but I wouldn't actually submit this into develop as the final solution. It could be like a prototype to allow Elena to be tested, things like that. But before you actually say that you're finished with it, you should actually take the first step and create a view model for it as a minimum solution. So let's create this view model. So the thing we need is a view model file itself. Let's see, just see how it would look. You will see that it's very similar to what you see on the left side. It contains the data, and also it contains all the logic. So basically, most of the code on the left side, which is currently part of the component, is separated out to a separate class. So let's just do this quickly. I'm inserting a file. It will be a TypeScript file in this directory. It will be called seminar view model. It doesn't need to be TS because it knows that. You can see now that I'm trying to add this way. It will actually ask me if I want to add it under Git as well. Yes, I will do that. It's inserted in the current directory, by the way. Now I just copy everything from here into this file. You will see it's actually complaining for duplication of code, and this is actually true. I haven't removed the code from the control element yet, so that's next step. Let's just copy it in, and you can see here I actually didn't have the same place for it, so let's generate this import again. Now you will see that the file is much shorter. There's not much code more left in this. the data model is collected in one class, and the same class it's actually holding all the business logic. But we need still to change the HTML file. You will see now that I open it, it's some red under elements, and because these are values now stored in the view model, right? So I need to take care of that. And what I do is basically prefixing all of these red errors with the VM prefix, because there's now residing in the view model class. Let's see if now this compiles. It does. Let's just run them in the browser. Let's try something else. Let's divide with 78. That's actually wrong. It should have a actually it's correct. Yeah. Now it's dividing by 0, and it's get a warning for it. Yeah, something's working. Now this is actually, I would say, a good solution for this very simple demonstration. I would probably leave it at this in this very simple case. But if I knew I wanted to take parts of this functionality and add it to another page, or I wanted to create unit tests on it, then I might already be considering moving it to a VIP model. But there is a kind of overhead in VIP implementation that you should know about. The VIP model is inherently more verbose, and you can say it contains code duplication in some cases. The code duplication is due to increased flexibility, and you're kind of coding it for future extension. So kind of saying that, okay, I know that I will add functionality to this. I want to extend it over time. It might be already the time then to actually establish the VIP and data structure before you do this implementation, because then you have a framework which is extensible and future-proof. The view model is not that. It's containing the current solution very well, but I wouldn't say it's easy to extend and add functionality to it, and it doesn't separate out the way the data flows in a way which I like to model it out. So basically, the main difference between the view model and the VIP model is that the view model has one data model and one business logic tied together. The VIP model tries to make sure that the different elements you see here, the X input, the operator, the calculate button, and the history and the output areas are each model individually. So they have their own logic, and they have their own data flow. So it's a model for data flow more than like a data model. So that's the kind of distinction I would make. So think about a VIP model as a data flow model. And this kind of goes into what you asked about the other day, Olga. How should we create a framework where we are allowing us some flexibility, which we currently don't have? Because, as you said, the data solution is very linked to the business logic, which is very linked to the UI. So that it doesn't actually allow us to set up testing in an easy way, and it doesn't actually allow us to add new functionality without actually causing it to be hard to do that. So let's go into the VIP model heads on. What I'll do is I'll introduce a few new files. So you can see here there are 5 files in this folder. I will just bring them over into the current solution by cherry picking this. Also, I will need let's see, bindings. Since we don't have a view model anymore, I still like the concept of having isolated or collected all the different values that are going to be mapped into the HTML file. And here it's easy to see that all the connections are found in the view model. The VIP structure doesn't have a view model as such, but still I find this very convenient. So having worked a long time in VPF, there's a term in VPF called binding. When you put data in the UI, the data is bound to the code behind or to the data model. And so I have established my own term, which I called the bindings. So let me also cherry pick this. So let me open the bindings first. So the bindings is actually the data you saw in the code behind solution, but it's extracted out as if it was a view model, but it only contains data to be put into the HTML file. So just to understand that everything that is mentioned here is going to be linked into the HTML file. So let's bring over, instead of talking about this, let me bring over on the, let me show it this way. Close all tabs. Right. So if I do compare, sorry, it didn't work. I need to bring it up. Open vision. Actually, you can see here on screen. Instead of VM, I have bindings here, right? So let's copy this over to the HTML file that we currently have. It's complaining because I didn't update the TypeScript file according to at the same time. So let's open the TypeScript file that we have for the component. So this is the one that is using the view model. So let's now we will want to have this. I need to find it. Where is it? There we go. So you can see here before I copy it over, it's not having a view model, it has the binding model. It also introduces the concept of an interactor. It's derived from a view controller. There's a bootstrap process in creating the presenter and the interactor. You can see it's created here and then it's linked it together. It has an initialization step, passing your preferred data to the interactor to be initializing the data model in bind. And you can see in this place, you would see we passed the logic to the view model. Here we are passing it to the interactor. So this hasn't changed actually. The event handler is passing data to the interactor instead of the view model. This hasn't changed. The operation event handler is passing it on. Button is passing it on. But these are new ones. These are actually actions dictated or received by as a result of interaction. And I will try to explain why this makes sense. But let's first complete so that we have a workable solution. Let me just check on the build, see if it's building. I might have forgotten to bring something over. Seems to be a problem. Yes, I did actually change the name Let's see. Oh, yeah, it's still using the view model. That's why. So I need to copy this. Let's try again to build, see what happens. It's building. Let's just test it out, refresh the page. Let's do something. If I clear this, you can see now it's actually complaining about invalid operator. So let's then divide. It doesn't allow you to divide. Everything's working again. And now everything is working, being implemented by a VIP model. So as I said, you might be surprised to what change I made between the view model and the VIP model. You can see that basically the event initiation is passed on just like we did with the view model, but these things down here are new. You will see that the data flow is out of the control element and then into the control element. So there's no, if I go back to the view model solution, Git, if I find the view model, open this, you will see that in the view model's case, as I received the input, I triggered a validation, and validation would trigger an update of the error. So the input caused validation, and it caused an error to be displayed. And that was like a very hard-coded data flow. There's no easy way to extend on that in a modular way. So what we want to do, we want to break apart things to be more loosely connected. So let me show you the implementation we currently have. So I think a good illustration is in the presenter. So let's find the presenter. So you would see that in most cases, the presenter is only taking input and passing it on to the control element. But there is one minor modification here. It's taking the output and it's prefixing it with an equal symbol. So if you look to the solution, this equals symbol is actually not part of the business logic. It's not part of the data model. It's actually added as a visual prefix in this show output. So this is the only exception to just passing it on. But I don't want to go into much detail, but having it like a presenter allows you to test the code in a new way. And you can inject your own test class to check on the output from the interactor. So there's a flexibility now that it wasn't there before to create unit tests, and also it's nice separation between what is calculated and what is shown. So basically, anything that is to be part of the displayed value, not the calculated value, can be done on this presenter class. The interactor itself contains a reference to the data store and also presenter. One thing I wanted to highlight, which is something I haven't been consistent with myself, you really should keep the data store private because you don't want to have anyone else use your data store. Basically, it's your data store. You don't want to add access to it. The data store is indirectly accessed by the output of this to the presenter. So data store content is passed on to anyone who's interested using the presenter. If you're curious about the data store and how it looks like this. Basically, it contains all the data you see on the screen, but it does not contain the error message. The error message is part of the bound model, though. You would see here. So this is almost one-to-one, but you can see here the error is here, but it's actually the data store who dictates the operators. The reason why it's dictated by this data store and not dictated by the binding is actually because there's a limited amount of logic being implemented. So if I go to the worker, you will see that the worker knows to deal with these operators only. That's why it's important that it's the data store who dictates the functionality. So it has to do with ownership. So you can place the ownership in different areas, but in the case for operators, it's important to keep it in store. So I'm losing a bit track here, but basically, if you, and I hope that you spend some time in reviewing the seminar. I even hope that you play with the implementation like I did, using Git, cherry picking, navigating the solution. I could commit this to develop as is, but I don't want to do that because I think it would be a good exercise for you guys to actually spend half an hour and do these steps yourself. And at the final result, take a look at what you have seen here as the solution and try to understand the nuances and aspects of the VIP. But basically what I said, code behind, stay away from it. View model, use it for simple cases and cases where you don't think the solution will be reused elsewhere. For cases where you wanted to increase reuse or add more complexity in future, then you should actually go with the VIP model. And as I said, the VIP model is a data flow model. It allows for disconnect between different element time the data is flowing. So think about this as a pipeline the data is flowing through, and it allows you to examine the data at different parts of the pipe and make changes to the pipe. So you can almost say that VIP model does for UI what RxJS does for data. So maybe that's a good analog to use. So let me look at the time. I have 10 minutes. So maybe I should open for questions and answers. First off, let me ask you guys a question. Have you heard about the VIP model before?
Yep.
Anyone?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah, but actually never saw like implemented.
Okay. So I haven't talked about the different components as such, but you can see here, as I said in my initial briefing, let me open. So a view model would at least consist of a presenter and interactor. In my solution, I have a view controller in addition to the presenter and interactor, and also introduced the data store, and also I introduced the worker. Also, this is not part of the view model, but I like actually the structure of having all the data that you are going to link to the HTML5 file in a single container. So I'm calling the container bindings by my own preference. So yeah, as you can see, this data model is more extensive than a view model would be. At the same time, it allows you much greater flexibility and control of the data flow.
What is the difference between the bindings and data store? Is it a kind of mapping for displaying?
You can say that this is the visualized data. So if you see something on the screen, it will be from this. So if you look to the output on the screen is containing the equal symbol, right? The data store itself, if I recall correctly, doesn't have output as a field. It's actually transmitted from the presenter as an output, or from the interactor, I mean. But these data are needed to do calculations, basically. To do the calculations, you need X and Y, and you need to know what is this current operator, and also you want to have a local history. It might be that you don't need the local history on this side, but then you need to add the history logic in the presenter step, for instance. So I could have moved the data store, the history out of the store and into the presenter, but then the presenter isn't at like a worker class anymore. I don't actually like to have too much logic or data model associated with the presenter. The presenter should just modify its input as part of passing it onwards. It's a good question, though. Why do I have this duplication? And as I said, they have different roles. The binding is visual data. There's more fields here because there are more fields than it's actually needed by the backend. So you can see that these are the cache data. So Alexei have been working on a cache solution for dashboard. The caching solution on the web client would be a data store. I would think in that sense that you're passing data out of the cache and to be displayed, and you don't maybe you're adding data as you're doing displaying it, or maybe you're calculating some data. Yeah, so it's kind of the backend data storage. Would that be like something you can relate to as an explanation?
Yeah, it's quite enough, I think.
Could you please provide some more differences between MVP and VIP? Because it seems like they are pretty the same.
You mean what is the difference between a view model and a VIP?
No, MVP, model view presenter, and VIP. These two patterns difference. I haven't catched the main differences.
I think you would find that the model view presenter doesn't have this view controller, which is kind of an encapsulation of what you need to satisfy to be able to be part of this data flow. I'm wrong, but I haven't been working myself with this model that you talked about. It might actually be quite similar to VIP. I'm not, so I can't actually comment on it. I would need to study it actually. But I know that this has been said to be even more flexible and has some benefits over the one you mentioned.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Can you check in somewhere these examples just to look at them a bit?
Maybe I should commit what I have on my screen now. Let me do that. So I think I made some changes to this also. Let me include this. Also do this. And then I like to commit and then push as two different operators. So you can see now it's actually giving me a feedback to what I will be adding as changes to GitHub. So yeah, let's add this. Okay, so you will find everything there now. Actually, I didn't push this. Let me add this as well. Okay, any other comments? So last comment I have on my side is that I have tried to implement, I would say, the VIP model in some areas. You will find it both in VPF and also in Angular. So having this introduction, I hope you will find it easier to read my code. Just know that when I started using the VIP model, it was quite new to me, so I probably didn't actually use it in the best way initially. So I hope to get some time later on to review the previous work I've done using the VIP model to see if I can improve on the implementation so that it's actually more streamlined and follows the principle that I talked about. In particular, what I haven't done before is to make sure that the store is private. So I guess I did that to save some time because as you saw, Olga, the binding model was quite similar to the data store. So I did a shortcut basically in allowing access to data store to the UI, but that is not actually the correct way of doing it. It actually needs to be duplicated this way to maintain the separation between the layers. So I should go back and correct for this when I get some time.
Yes, we had such approach on some previous projects for data access layer and business logic layer also. So it looks quite familiar, just never saw it implemented on UI layers. So it would be really interesting to look at this because current implementation in some places are really connected. Everything's so connected to each other, and hard to predict what would be the result of your own changes. For example, if you want to add something, and that's true.
Let me just show you also the latest effort I made in implementing based on the VIP is if I use this live application. As you know, we have a project page, and this data table you see here is a project table. If I should load activities, this is an activity table, this is resource table and fixed cost table. But you can see here there are some common behavior. The table has columns. It has a column editor. You can select a row, and the row is selected because the row has a unique identifier. It's loaded from the database at the same time, actually. So you load data on the project level as you open it on the activity level here. You're actually loading data both for the activity table, the resource table, fixed cost table, and even resource table. Just so there's some similar traits, and I try to model out the similarities in a way which you can reuse the code. And so I have established a VIP structure in the source code you can see here. And you can actually see also that I have modeled out different actions. You can set columns on a table. You can trigger a refresh. This is the button down here. You can save data to the database, and also you can change the view because I can change the views here, right? So all of these things are in the process of being generalized by me and put into this VIP structure you see here. So this is ongoing work, so most likely will change. But if you wanted to look at my latest efforts in making use of the VIP, it will be this place. Any other questions? No, in that case, I thank you for spending your time with me today as well. I spent half an hour now, and the next topic on that I will bring up is, let me find it, is states and services. I think I'll include these two topics in the next seminar, and I'll probably run for half an hour or so. I don't think we need more. Is everyone available for tomorrow?
I'm not available tomorrow, unfortunately. Can we move the next seminar maybe next week? Because unfortunately,
that's okay.
Tomorrow and Friday I can.
Let's schedule it for Tuesday then. I think I would like to be skipping this quickly, and these two topics here is what I really want to go into details with you guys, because this is kind of Adrega in a nutshell. It should explain to you how I think data should flow from the database, to the backend, to the front end, and to the table to be populated in tables. So the data model is also a data flow model, and also it contains functionality to save data from user input and into data. And also, having described the data model, it's also necessary to describe how we describe what columns to be added to a table, basically, and how that is linked with the data. So yeah, these two are quite extensive sessions, and maybe the most important sessions on my list of seminars. And I hope to go through this next week already, so that you have this knowledge before you do any more coding. Okay.
I have a question actually. What do you mean? What do you think? What was the rule? What should be the rule of our, let's say, refactoring? This new VIP model or this new, let's say, data models. Should we introduce this refactoring on release branch or just on development?
Not certainly on the release branch, no. Release branch should be considered for short-term hotfixes, or easy to implement hotfixes. I hope that there's no need to do major changes in 5.4. And if there are needs, it should be delayed and be part of the release of develop branch.
Okay. And can you put somewhere not place, but source where we can take these materials? Maybe I missed it. Maybe you said that before, but just to be sure that all these files with rules like syntax and so on are available.
Yeah, it's already in develop branch. So you will find that if I open Radar, which is a global view of my Git repository. Just a second. So if I browse now the file system, you will find that there is a folder in the root folder called Wiki. And under the Wiki, there's a seminar folder, and this contains all the markdown pages that I've been displaying.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. As I said, I think this is a good practice to maintain the code guides with the code, because obviously in a year or two, maybe we changed preference on casing, in which case the code will be, the document will be updated alongside with the code. So having it stored in TFS or somewhere else outside of the source code area, I find it less convenient than actually having it as part of the source code.
Oh, this is a really great way of keeping, let's say, a knowledge base for the project. It's really great to have such a wiki.
Yeah, very good. Any comments? No, I wish everyone a good day then, and let's meet again tomorrow. Hopefully we can meet on the regular Scrum time then. See you then. Bye bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.